This is Toby Eunice from A Gypsy Kiss with your weekly podcast for Monday, January 6th, 2014. Our guest today is Renelle Jacobson, a thrill of the chase treasure hunter from Montana. Renelle, welcome to the podcast. We're happy you could join us today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for inviting me.
It was our pleasure. Let's get right into it. Tell us your backstory. How did you end up becoming one of the searchers looking for Forrest Fenn's hidden treasure?
Well, I read about it on a flight in the In-Flight magazine, on United's Hemisphere magazine, actually. Margie Goldsmith had written an article about Forrest and the treasure, and I was heading out on vacation, on a rare vacation, and I was so excited. And at that moment, I picked up the article, and I just thought, this will be my next adventure. When I get home, this is what I'm going to start working on. And here we are. I mean, it's been quite the adventure already, and I haven't even found the treasure yet.
I'm sure it'll be a bigger adventure after you do find the treasure.
I would imagine so, yes.
When you first started the search, what was your objective?
To find the treasure, of course, and to have fun along the way. I think that's part of the reason Forrest did it, is to kind of instill some excitement into the lives of us average people. I think my objectives have shifted just a little since I started, in that now I'm more focused on finding the puzzle. Solving the puzzle. That's kind of my main goal. I want to know. I want to figure it out. I want to know where that thing is sitting, even if it's empty. I just want to figure it out. But, it's also about the thrill of possible discovery and the road trips and the exploring and all the fun to be had along the way. That's kind of what it's about.
Well, let's draw that out a little bit. What do you think about Forrest Fenn and what he's done with the thrill of the chase?
When I went to meet Forrest, I expected someone of great intelligence and a very interesting man who's led a fascinating life. And I indeed found someone like that, but I was also kind of surprised a bit. I didn't expect such enormous kindness and generosity, and that's what I found in him. And look at this raffle he's done for me, and that's the perfect example. He's come up with that out of the blue, and look where that's gone. And I think it's a testament of his character and the generous spirit that he is. And then regarding the treasure, I mean, he's given the public this fantastic gift of excitement and possibility and adventure. And I mean, he's done the thing that as a kid you dream of someone doing, and then no one ever does, and he did. He has. And I think it takes an unusual person to do such a thing, and the whole thing is just really rather extraordinary. I think it's wonderful.
I guess we should mention to our listeners who don't know your entire story, of the perhaps hundreds of thousands of people searching for the treasure, you're one of the few that's had the opportunity to meet Forrest Fenn. And I think that in and of itself has become a great story. So what's the most intriguing aspect of this treasure hunt?
That it's out there. I'm not a professional treasure hunter. I've never done anything like this before, but it seems to me that when you hear rumors of shipwrecks with gold on board or treasure buried by long ago pirates, a lot of times it seems they are just that. They're rumors. And you don't actually know if there's anything to be found. You could just be chasing air. But this is something that was not only hidden in our lifetimes recently, actually, but was put there to be found intentionally. And he gives you everything you need to find it. It's all there. You just have to figure it out. And I think that's what I find the most interesting and intriguing about it.
So each of us discovers changes in ourselves as we pursue this treasure hunt. What new characteristic or personality trait have you learned about yourself since beginning your search?
Oh, I don't know that there's any specific characteristic exactly, but I guess I did do something rather out of character that I don't know I would have done had it not been for the treasure. And that involves, it's a bit of a story actually, and it involves in a way Harrison Ford, sort of. About a year ago, through some wonderful nurses of mine, I was given the opportunity to meet him, which was very exciting for me because I'm a huge fan, especially of the indie movies. And so it was a really great day for me, and he was extraordinarily caring and just really, really sweet to me. So fast forward several months, and I'm working on finding the treasure, and I'm zooming around on Google Earth at, 2:30 in the morning, looking at our search area, and I just kept thinking how great it would be to fly over it for real and not just on Google Earth. And I knew Harrison Ford was a big aviation buff and loves to fly. And, he obviously played this very iconic character in film history, Indiana Jones. And I just thought, wouldn't it be something to go flying with a man who played Indy and look for a real live treasure at the same time? I mean, that would just be the ultimate, wouldn't it? But I couldn't bring myself to ask for it because it just seemed so forward and rude. But I thought about it, and finally I just thought, oh well, you only live once. What can it hurt to ask? So I didn't have the guts to contact him directly, but I talked to his friend who had facilitated my meeting Harrison Ford, who was a local doctor, and I said, is there any chance that you think anything like this could ever happen? And he said, oh, who knows? I mean, it could be something Harrison would be up for, but he's not here. He's out of the state. He's filming somewhere. But I have a helicopter, and I'll take you out to look for it because that sounds like a lot of fun. And I said, okay. So I went with him, with Dr. Sugden, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun to be able to see our search area from the air and just go down and hover and eliminate some things and add others as possibilities. It was just a really great fun. And in his own right, he's an interesting man who could rival Forrest. He was a flight surgeon in Vietnam, and he could rival Forrest with stories of his own. And so it was a great, great day that I don't know that I would have had the guts to do if it wasn't, the perfect storm of the treasure, Harrison Ford, and aviation kind of all entering my mind at the same time, for better or for worse.
Well, I hope for you that Mr. Ford hears this podcast, and you hear from him in the near future. And if you do, I'm going to ask that you invite me along because it was this podcast that stimulated this.
Oh, yeah, it's a deal. I think I'm safe and sane. Sure, why not?
Okay. So how long have you been searching? How long have you been on the search?
I read about it a year ago, and I think
Okay.
I started in April, I believe.
9 months. Now that you've had some experience searching, what would you have done differently?
Well, that's kind of an easy question in my particular situation, and it has to do with an incident at 4:30 a.m. involving a phone call from me to one of my treasure partners, and I informed him that I had just figured it out. I had solved the puzzle, and I knew where the treasure was. And not only that, but we had to leave immediately to go and get it. And he spent the next 30 minutes trying to talk some sense into me, and I was not hearing it. And in my defense, I'd had no sleep, and I get a little loopy without sleep. And I think, in fact, I said something like, I can't be bothered with logic right now. I know this is right, and we'll figure out the details on the road. And to his great credit, we left, at I don't know, first light. And I did live near Yellowstone at the time, but it was not a 20-minute drive. This was multiple hours away. And we had just returned the night before from a 2-day expedition to go search. So I think that says a lot to the people I have around me that they're willing to put up with such a nutcase treasure partner as me with all my, considerable impulsiveness. But if I could change something, I would take that day back because, of course, we got there and I was wrong. So.
What do you plan to do with the treasure if you find it?
It's hard to answer. For for two reasons, I think. One, we don't know exactly what's in the chest. Forrest has published some of the items, but I don't believe all of them. I think he's mentioned there are a couple things he threw in that he didn't tell anyone about. So two, then of course it's impossible to know the value. And, for me personally, it would be incredibly difficult to sell anything. Of course you'd have to, but it would be hard because I looked into archaeology as a career when I was in college. I was so fascinated by the field, and I still am, and I love history. So, if I had my way, I would stash it in a corner of my house behind a huge steel door with a really, really big lock, and then just take it out every day and look at it and take out the items and arrange them and put them back in again. But, of course, that's not really practical, is it? So I suppose we would have to somehow trade it for cash, and then I would do, most of it anyway, and I would do the kind of the boring things everybody would do, pay off bills, and in my case medical bills, and put some aside for future medical bills. And I think what I would really love to do most is to give most of it to my parents and try to force my dad to retire. He's been a farmer, and now he's a long-haul truck driver, and he's worked so hard his whole life, and it would just be really nice to see him take a break and travel with my mom and have some fun. So that would be the first thing I would do.
So I promised all my interview subjects that I wouldn't ask you any questions related to your search tactics or strategies, but these are two questions that come from recent polls on A Gypsy's Kiss, and I hope you don't mind answering them. The first is, in which state do you believe Forrest hid the treasure, and why?
Well, I don't think it's any secret now that Forrest published this blog about me that I do not believe it's around Santa Fe. He mentioned that I flew over Yellowstone during my helicopter flight, and I do think it's probably in that area. The reason behind it, it's really just a feeling. I've found that people who spend time in national parks, both employees and visitors, usually have a favorite park. I know I do. And it seems to me that when I read Forrest's stories about Yellowstone, that he was describing a place very special to him. And he has said that he placed the treasure in a very special place. So putting those two things together, that's why I think it's somewhere around that area.
Renelle, how do you think Forrest will know when the treasure has been discovered?
I don't know. I like to think about the possibility that you get close, and then, you hear a slight rustle through the trees, and then before you know it, a trap comes out of nowhere, and suddenly you're hanging upside down by 1 foot, and then a webcam will take a photo and email it to Forrest. Something right out of Indiana Jones. But, of course, I don't really know. It's fun to think about. I hope the traps, if there are any, aren't too painful. No, I don't know. It's an interesting question, though, isn't it? It's fun to think about all the different wacky possibilities, but I really don't have any idea. I would love to know the answer.
All right, last question for today. What's the best advice you can give to someone else who's planning to get involved with a treasure hunt?
Well, Forrest has said that he's hidden it somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, and I've lived in the Rocky Mountains for 16 years or so now, and they're unpredictable, and I would just say to be prepared. If you're going to go physically looking for it before you hit the trail, be sure to just bring at least the basics, water, food, and a light source and a map. And wherever you're searching, state or federal land, there's likely a website that lists what you should bring for that area. So, look it up and bring those things. And if nothing else, go to REI's website, rei.com, and they have a pretty good checklist of the 10 essentials you should bring on a day hike. And then I would add one more thing to that list. If you're going to be poking around in bear country, I would suggest picking up a canister of bear spray. And it's not cheap. It's $45, $50 at any sporting goods store, but it could be the best $50 you ever spend if you're in a situation when you need it. So I would just say grab the basics and then hit the trail and have fun. It's all about the adventure, isn't it? So have fun.
Renelle, thank you for joining our podcast today, and good luck in your search for the Fenn treasure.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure our listeners will find the conversation interesting and informative. Make sure to join our live streaming event on Tuesday, January 7th, 2014 at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for the raffle drawing for Fenn's bronze jar filled with treasure. You can get more information on our blog. Well, listeners, that's a wrap. Join us next week for another podcast from A Gypsy's Kiss, when our guest will be adventurer, videographer, publisher, treasure hunter, and all-around nice guy, Dal Neitzel. And remember, for the latest information in the search for Fenn's treasure, visit our blog at agypsieskiss.com. Until next time, this is Toby Eunice for A Gypsy's Kiss, signing off.